An arrogant millionaire bets he can marry a simple waitress in a month, but when true love comes into play, dark secrets come to light and change their lives forever. Before we dive into this thrilling story, tell us in the comments, have you ever fallen in love with someone unexpected? Now get ready for a journey of love, intrigue, and redemption. New York City pulsed with its usual energy on that summer night. The bright lights of Manhattan reflected off the skyscraper windows, creating a spectacle of colors that rivaled the stars in the sky. On the 50th floor of one of these imposing buildings, an extravagant party was in full swing. Alexander Rothschild, a 32-year-old millionaire known for his arrogance and eccentricity, was the center of attention. His tailored Italian suit and charismatic smile masked a deep boredom that had consumed him for years. Surrounded by flatterers and opportunists, he absent-mindedly sipped champagne, his blue eyes scanning the room for something, anything, that could break the monotony of his privileged life. It was then that his eyes fell on Mia, a 28-year-old waitress serving drinks with grace and efficiency. Her brown hair tied in a messy bun, and her simple uniform contrasted drastically with the designer dresses and expensive jewelry adorning the other women in the room. There was something in her green eyes, a mixture of determination and weariness, that intrigued Alexander. Impulsively, he approached his friends, a group of rich and bored heirs like himself. "Hey guys," he said with a mischievous smile, "how about a bet to liven up the night?" His companion's eyes gleamed with morbid interest. Alexander discreetly pointed at Mia. "I bet I can marry that waitress in, let's say, a month." Laughter echoed through the group. "Impossible!" exclaimed one. "You wouldn't last a week with someone of her class," another mocked. Bets started being placed, astronomical amounts being thrown around as if they were pocket change. Little did they know that this moment of cruel amusement was about to unleash a series of events that would change their lives forever. Meanwhile, Mia continued her work, completely oblivious to the fact that she had just become the center of a plot that would mix love, betrayal, and a secret so dark it could shake the foundations of New York's high society. The bet was made. The game had begun, and nothing would be the same again. In the weeks that followed, Alexander executed his plan with the precision of a military strategist. He began frequenting the modest cafe where Mia worked during the day, pretending to be a writer, in search of inspiration. Day after day, he sat in the same corner, ordering countless cups of coffee and discreetly observing Mia over his laptop. Mia, in turn, couldn't help but notice the handsome, well-dressed customer who seemed to have made the cafe his second home. She caught him looking at her sometimes, but he always quickly averted his gaze, pretending to be focused on his work. Intrigued, she began to wonder about him. On a particularly busy morning, Alexander saw his opportunity. Mia, carrying a tray full of cups, tripped over a distracted customer. In a quick move, Alexander stood up and steadied her, avoiding an imminent disaster. "Thank you," Mia said, breathless, her green eyes meeting his for the first time. "My pleasure," Alexander replied with a charming smile. "I'm Alexander, by the way." "Mia," she responded, a slight blush tinting her cheeks. This seemingly casual encounter marked the beginning of a series of carefully orchestrated interactions by Alexander. He began chatting with her during her breaks, telling fascinating stories about his supposed travels as a writer. Mia, in turn, shared fragments of her life, her dreams of becoming a chef, the difficulties of paying bills in New York, the loneliness of being away from her family in the Midwest. Alexander absorbed every detail, using them to shape his approach. He presented himself as a simple man, concealing his true wealth and status. When Mia mentioned her love for Italian cuisine, he casually suggested a small family restaurant in Brooklyn. When she talked about her passion for photography, he invited her to an exhibition at a local gallery. Meanwhile, Alexander's friends watched from afar, impressed by his dedication to the bet. They couldn't understand why he was trying so hard for a simple waitress. What they didn't know was that, as the days passed, Alexander found himself thinking more and more about Mia. Her genuine laughter, so different from the affected laughs he was used to, The way her eyes sparkled when she talked about her dreams, the kindness with which she treated even the most difficult customers. One night, after a particularly pleasant dinner, Alexander and Mia were walking through Central Park. The full moon hovered above them, casting a silver light over the trees and the lake. Alexander knew this was the perfect moment to advance. His plan. "Mia," he said, stopping and holding her hands, "these past few weeks have been the happiest of my life. I know it might seem crazy, but I've fallen in love with you." Mia's eyes widened in surprise, but a soft smile spread across her face. "Alex, I feel the same way." Alexander felt a pang of guilt, but quickly pushed it away. He knelt down, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. "Mia Thompson, would you do me the honor of marrying me?" The shock on Mia's face was palpable. "Alex, we barely know each other. This is madness." "Sometimes when you know, you just know," Alexander replied softly, his voice filled with a sincerity that surprised him. After a moment that seemed like an eternity, Mia slowly nodded. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I'll marry you." As Alexander slipped the ring onto her finger, modest enough not to raise suspicions yet still expensive, he felt a confusing mix of emotions. Triumph for being about to win the bet, guilt for deceiving Mia, and something else, something he wasn't prepared to admit even to himself. What Alexander didn't know was that, while he was planning his conquest, greater forces were in motion. In a dark office in downtown Manhattan, an elderly man examined a folder with Mia Thompson on the cover. His tired eyes gleamed with a somber interest as he muttered to himself, "We've finally found her." As the newly engaged couple walked back to Mia's apartment, neither of them realized they were being watched. A figure in the shadows took a photo, quickly sending it with the message, "It's done." She took the bait. Alexander's bet was about to become much more complicated than he could ever imagine. The following weeks passed in a whirlwind of wedding preparations. Alexander, determined to maintain his charade, insisted on a simple and intimate wedding, claiming he wanted to honor Mia's modest origins. In reality, he feared that a grand event might expose his true identity. Mia, enchanted by the romantic idea of a quick wedding, dove headfirst into the preparations. She didn't notice the small inconsistencies in Alexander's story, like how he always seemed to have money for essential things, despite claiming to be a struggling writer. Meanwhile, Alexander's friends watched with a mixture of admiration and disbelief. They couldn't believe he was taking the bet so far. One night, during one of their secret meetings at an exclusive bar, they confronted him. "Alex, are you really going to marry her?" asked Thomas, one of his closest friends, incredulously. Alexander shrugged, an arrogant smile on his face. "A month was the deadline, wasn't it? I'm just fulfilling the terms of the bet. But what about after?" questioned Sarah, a socialite who had always had a crush on Alexander. "Are you just going to get divorced?" For a moment, Alexander's mask of indifference faltered. The truth was, he hadn't thought much beyond the wedding. The idea of hurting Mia bothered him more than he cared to admit. "We'll see what happens," he replied vaguely, quickly changing the subject. What Alexander didn't know was that his actions had triggered a series of events beyond his control. The elderly man who had examined Mia's file weeks earlier was actually Gregory Thompson, a reclusive tech magnate, and coincidentally, Mia's long-lost grandfather. Gregory had spent years searching for his granddaughter, the daughter of his rebellious son, who had run away decades ago. When he finally located her, he was horrified to discover that she was about to marry Alexander Rothschild, a name he knew all too well. In his heavily guarded office, Gregory met with his trusted assistant, David. "We need to stop this wedding," Gregory declared, his voice trembling with anger. "The Rothschilds ruined our family once. I won't allow it to happen again." David nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. "What do you want me to do, sir?" "Investigate Alexander. Find out what he really wants with Mia, and prepare everything. We're going to reveal the truth to her before it's too late." Meanwhile, unaware of the plots forming around them, Mia and Alexander continued their preparations. On a sunny afternoon, while choosing flowers for the wedding, Mia noticed Alexander absent-mindedly looking at his phone, a worried expression on his face. "Is everything okay, love?" she asked, gently touching his arm. Alexander, startled, quickly putting away his phone. "Of course, just problems with the editor," he lied smoothly. In reality, he had received a strange message from an unknown number. "We know who you really are, Rothschild. Stay away from Mia Thompson, or the consequences will be severe." For the first time since the beginning of this whole charade, Alexander felt a twinge of genuine fear. Who could be threatening him? And how did they know about Mia? As the wedding day approached, tension increased on all sides. Alexander found himself torn between his desire to win the bet and the genuine feelings he was developing for Mia. Gregory intensified his efforts to expose the truth before it was too late. And Mia, innocent amid all this, continued dreaming of her seemingly perfect fairy tale. On the eve of the wedding, during the rehearsal in the small garden where the ceremony would take place, Alexander noticed a man watching them from afar. When their eyes met, the stranger smiled coldly and disappeared into the crowd. That night, alone in his luxurious apartment, a place Mia had never visited, Alexander stared at his reflection in the mirror. The man looking back at him was a stranger, someone torn between the desire to win at any cost and the fear of losing something that he only now realized how precious it was. With trembling hands, he picked up his phone, ready to call Mia and confess everything. But before he could dial, a notification flashed on the screen, a photo of him and Mia in the park, taken weeks ago, with the message, "Tomorrow, the truth will come out." "I hope you're ready, Mr. Rothschild." Alexander dropped the phone, his heart racing. The game he had initiated was about to reach a climax he could never have predicted, and the stakes were much higher than simply money or pride. The wedding day dawned with an overcast sky, as if nature itself sensed the emotional storm that was coming. Alexander woke up early, his stomach churning with anxiety. He knew he should be preparing for the big moment, but instead he found himself wandering the halls of his penthouse apartment, lost in thought. Meanwhile, in a small hotel room, Mia was being helped by her best friend, Lucy, to dress for the big day. Her simple but elegant dress perfectly reflected the nature of the quick and seemingly unpretentious relationship she had with Alexander. "Are you sure about this, Mia?" Lucy asked, adjusting the veil. "I mean, you've known each other for such a short time." Mia smiled, her eyes shining with happiness. "I know it seems crazy, Lucy, but with Alex, it's like I've known him my whole life. He understands me in a way no one ever has." At that moment, a loud knock on the door interrupted the conversation. Lucy opened it, revealing a distinguished-looking elderly man, accompanied by a younger assistant. "Can I help you?" Lucy asked, confused. The older man stepped forward, his eyes fixed on Mia. "My name is Gregory Thompson, and you, my dear, are my granddaughter." The silence that followed was deafening. Mia, as pale as her dress, managed to stammer, "What? This isn't possible. My grandparents are dead." Gregory entered the room, his expression a mixture of emotion and determination. "Your father, my son, ran away years ago. He told us that you and your mother had died in an accident. We only recently discovered the truth." As Mia tried to process this shocking revelation, Gregory continued, "But that's not the only reason I'm here. Mia, the man you're about to marry is not who he claims to be." On the other side of town, Alexander was about to leave his apartment when his phone rang. It was Thomas, one of his friends from the bet. "Alex, you need to come to the club now. It's urgent." "I'm about to get married, Thomas. Whatever it is, it can wait," Alexander replied, irritated. "No, it can't." Thomas's voice was tense. "Someone leaked information about the bet to the press. It's in all the newspapers, Alex. Everyone knows." Alexander's world seemed to crumble. With trembling hands, he opened his news app, and there it was: "Millionaire makes cruel bet. Marriage to waitress is a fraud." Back in the hotel room, Gregory was showing Mia the same headlines on his tablet. "Alexander Rothschild is one of the richest men in New York. He bet his friends that he could marry a waitress in a month." "You, Mia, are that waitress?" Mia felt as if the floor had disappeared beneath her feet. Tears began to stream down her face, ruining her carefully applied makeup. "No, it can't be true. Alex loves me. He..." Her voice faltered as reality began to sink in. All the small inconsistencies, Alexander's moments of hesitation, suddenly made sense in a horrible way. Gregory approached, placing a gentle hand on Mia's shoulder. "I know it's a lot to absorb at once, but you need to know the truth before you make the biggest mistake of your life." At this moment, Mia's cell phone started ringing incessantly. It was Alexander, desperate to talk to her, to explain, to somehow fix what he had done. With a calmness that surprised even herself, Mia picked up the phone and turned it off. Turning to Gregory, she said, "You said you're my grandfather. Prove it." Gregory nodded, taking an old photo from his wallet. In it, a young man who looked incredibly like Mia's father was holding a baby. "This is your father holding you on the day you were born, the last day I saw him." Mia took the photo with trembling hands, immediately recognizing her father. It was true, everything was true. Meanwhile, Alexander was running through the streets of New York, ignoring the stares and camera flashes that were already chasing him. He needed to get to Mia, he needed to explain, he needed to... do what? He didn't even know anymore. What had started as a cruel bet had turned into something much more complicated. And now, with the truth exposed, all the lives involved were about to change forever. In the hotel room, Mia stood up, a new determination in her eyes. "Cancel the wedding," she told Lucy. Turning to Gregory, she continued, "And you, Grandpa, have a lot to explain to me." Chaos quickly ensued after the bombshell revelation. The small garden where the wedding was supposed to take place became a frenzy of confused guests, journalists eager for information, and security guards trying to maintain order. Mia, still dressed as a bride, left the hotel through the back door, escorted by Gregory and his assistant, David. They quickly headed for a waiting limousine, narrowly, escaping the reporters who were beginning to gather at the main entrance. Inside the vehicle, Mia finally allowed her emotions to overwhelm her. Silent tears streamed down her face as she looked out the window, seeing the city she thought she knew pass by in a blur. "Where are we going?" she asked, her voice almost a whisper. Gregory, seated across from her, replied gently, "To my house. It's a safe place where we can talk without interruptions. There's a lot we need to discuss, Mia." Meanwhile, Alexander finally arrived at the wedding venue, only to find a scene of confusion. His friends, those who had participated in the bet, were being bombarded with questions by the press. Some seemed to be enjoying the attention, while others clearly wanted to disappear. Thomas, seeing Alexander arrive, ran up to him. "Alex, you better get out of here. This has turned into a circus." But Alexander wasn't listening. His eyes frantically scanned the crowd, looking for Mia. "Where is she? I need to talk to her." "She's already gone, man," Thomas replied, pulling Alexander away from the camera flashes. "They say she left with an older man. No one knows where they went." The reality of the situation finally hit Alexander with full force. He had lost Mia. Worse still, he had hurt her in a way that might be irreparable. For the first time in his privileged life, Alexander Rothschild felt the crushing weight of the consequences of his actions. At the Thompson mansion, located on the outskirts of New York, Mia was led into a luxurious living room. Still dressed, as a bride, she looked out of place among the antique furniture and expensive artwork. Gregory sat down in a leather armchair, inviting Mia to sit on the sofa across from him. "I know you must have many questions," he began. Mia nodded, trying to organize her thoughts. "Why now?" she finally asked. "Why wait until my wedding day to appear?" Gregory sighed heavily. "The truth, Mia, is that I only discovered your existence a few weeks ago. When I learned you were about to marry a Rothschild, I panicked. What do the Rothschilds have to do with this?" Mia questioned, confused. "It's a long story going back decades," Gregory explained. "The Rothschild family and ours have a complicated history. Business rivalries, betrayals. It's something that goes beyond simple business." Meanwhile, Alexander had taken refuge in his apartment, ignoring the incessant calls from his lawyers and press advisors. He was sitting on his bedroom floor, surrounded by photos and mementos of the moments he spent with Mia. It was then that he noticed something, a small notebook that Mia had forgotten during one of her visits. Curious, he opened it and began to read. It was a diary full of Mia's thoughts and dreams. As he read, Alexander felt his heart tighten. Mia's words were full of hope, love, and unwavering trust in him. "What have I done?" he muttered to himself, guilt consuming him. Back at the Thompson mansion, Mia was trying to process everything Gregory was telling her about her family's history. "So, you're telling me we're rich?" she asked, incredulous. Gregory nodded. "Very. And now that you're here, I want you to take your rightful place in the company and the family." Mia stood up abruptly, walking to the window. "This is too much. A few hours ago, I was just a waitress about to marry the man I loved. Now, I find out everything was a lie, and that I'm the heir to a fortune I didn't even know existed." Gregory approached her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "I know it's a lot to absorb, but I want you to know that despite not having met before, you were always loved and sought after." At that moment, Mia's cell phone, which she had turned back on, started ringing. It was Alexander. With trembling hands, she looked at her grandfather. Unsure of what to do, "The decision is yours," Gregory said softly. "But remember, sometimes it's better to cut ties with the past to build a better future." Mia stared at the phone for a few more seconds before finally answering. "Alex," she said, her voice cold and controlled. "Mia, please, let me explain." Alexander's voice sounded desperate on the other end of the line. "It's not what you're thinking." "It's not? So you didn't bet that you could marry me in a month?" Mia retorted, her anger finally coming to the surface. There was a painful pause before Alexander responded. "Yes, I did that. But Mia, things changed. I changed. My feelings for you are real." Gregory watched attentively, his expression a mixture of concern and calculation. He gestured to David, who immediately began tracing the call. "How can I believe you now, Alex?" Mia asked, tears silently streaming down her face. "Everything was a lie from the beginning." "Not everything," Alexander insisted. "Please meet me. Let me explain in person. There are things you need to know. Things about your family that—" At that moment, Gregory made an abrupt gesture, and David quickly disconnected the call. "What did you do?" Mia exclaimed, shocked. "Protected you," Gregory replied firmly. "The Rothschilds are not trustworthy, Mia. They will do or say anything to get what they want." Mia was about to protest when David interrupted. "Sir, we have a problem. It seems the press has discovered about Mia being your granddaughter. There are reporters gathering at the mansion gates." Gregory cursed softly. "They're quick. David, increase security and prepare a press statement. Say we'll make an official announcement soon." Turning to Mia, he continued. "Darling, I know it's a lot to process, but we need to act quickly. There's more at stake here than just your relationship with Alexander." "What do you mean?" Mia asked, feeling there were even more secrets to be revealed. Gregory hesitated for a moment before answering. "Our company, Thompson Tech, is about to launch a revolutionary innovation that could change the global technological landscape. The Rothschilds would give anything to get their hands on this information." Mia shook her head, incredulous. "Are you suggesting that, Alex, that all this was some kind of industrial espionage?" "We can't rule out that possibility," Gregory replied gravely. Meanwhile, in Alexander's apartment, the situation was equally chaotic. His lawyers had finally managed to get in, and now the room was full of men in suits discussing damage control strategies. "Mr. Rothschild, we need to issue a statement immediately," insisted one of the lawyers. "Silence is only fueling speculation." But Alexander barely heard. His mind was focused on something he had read in Mia's diary, a mention of a family necklace her mother had given her before passing away. A necklace that, according to the description, seemed strangely familiar to Alexander. "I need to leave," he declared abruptly, standing up. "Alex, you can't leave now." Thomas, who had arrived to support his friend, protested. "There are paparazzi everywhere." Ignoring the protests, Alexander picked up his phone and made a call. "I need you to find everything you can about a Thompson family necklace. It's urgent." Back at the Thompson mansion, Mia was having difficulties assimilating all the new information. Her world had turned upside down in a matter of hours. "Grandpa," she said, the words still strange in her mouth, "I need some time to think." It's too much." Gregory nodded understandingly. "Of course, dear, why don't you rest a bit? I've asked them to prepare a room for you." As Mia was led to her new room, Gregory turned to David. Increase surveillance. I don't want Alexander Rothschild or any of his associates getting near this house. David nodded, but hesitated before leaving. Sir, what about the other matter? Project Pandora? Gregory's eyes narrowed. Keep it in absolute secrecy. Not even Mia can know about it yet. As night fell over New York, the various players in this complex drama prepared for their next moves. Mia, lying in a strange bed in a house that was supposedly her family's, struggled to understand her new reality. Alexander, determined to uncover the truth behind the mysterious necklace, planned his next action. And Gregory, the Thompson patriarch, moved his pieces on a board much larger and more dangerous than anyone could imagine. The game was just beginning, and the challenges to come would test not only Mia and Alexander's love, but also family loyalties, corporate secrets, and the very nature of truth and trust. The next morning brought with it a tense atmosphere in the Thompson mansion. Mia woke up disoriented, taking a few moments to remember where she was and why. As she came down for breakfast, she found Gregory and David in a heated conversation that abruptly ceased with her arrival. "Good morning, dear," Gregory said, forcing a smile. "I hope you managed to get some rest." Mia nodded vaguely, sitting down at the ornate table. "The news, are they still talking about all this?" David turned on a flat-screen TV on the wall, where images of Mia, Alexander, and Gregory rapidly alternated. The headline read, "Rothschild-Thompson Scandal, More Than Just a Bet." Gregory turned off the TV with a sigh. "Mia, we need to discuss how we're going to handle this. The press isn't simply going to go away." At that moment, Mia's cell phone vibrated. It was a message from Alexander. "Please meet me, there's something you need to see. It's about your mother." Mia felt her heart race. Her mother? What could Alexander possibly know about her mother? "Any problem?" Gregory asked, noticing Mia's disturbed expression. "No, I just need some air," Mia responded, abruptly standing up. Meanwhile, Alexander was in his private office, examining a series of old documents and photos. His private investigator had worked all night and discovered something surprising. The necklace mentioned in Mia's diary wasn't just any family jewel. It was the key to something much bigger. A knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. It was Sarah, the socialite who had always had a crush on him. "Alex, are you okay?" she asked, entering without waiting for an invitation. "Everyone's worried." Alexander barely raised his eyes from the documents. "I'm busy, Sarah. It's not a good time." Sarah approached, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You really fell in love with her, didn't you? With this waitress?" The way she said waitress made Alexander turn, irritated. "Her name is Mia, and yes, I fell in love with her, more than I ever thought possible." Sarah stepped back, hurt. "What about us, what we had planned?" "There was never an us, Sarah," Alexander replied firmly, "and any plans we had, bestie, are over." Back at the Thompson mansion, Mia had found refuge in the elaborate gardens. She was rereading Alexander's message, debating internally. Part of her desperately wanted to believe him, to see what he had to say. Another part feared it was just another lie. "Miss Thompson?" David's voice surprised her. "Your grandfather is asking for you. There are some people he'd like you to meet." Mia followed him back to the house, where she found Gregory with a group of well-dressed executives. "Ah, Mia," Gregory exclaimed, "I want you to meet the board of directors of Thompson Tech. They're eager to meet the company's new heiress." The next few minutes were a blur of handshakes and forced smiles. Mia felt completely out of her element, especially when they started discussing business strategies and market forecasts. "Of course, with Miss Thompson taking a position in the company, our public image will improve considerably," one of the executives commented. Mia froze. "Wait, what? I never agreed to take a position in the company." Gregory quickly intervened. "Of course, it's all very new for Mia. Let's give her time to adjust." But Mia was already feeling suffocated. All this new life, these expectations, it was too much. "Excuse me," she muttered, hurriedly leaving the room. She ran to her room, closed the door, and finally let the tears fall. Picking up her phone, she replied to Alexander's message. "Where can we meet?" The response came almost instantly. "At the cafe where we met, in an hour." Mia looked at the closed door, knowing Gregory wouldn't approve, but she needed answers, and she felt Alexander was the only one who could provide them. Meanwhile, in the EIS corridors of Thompson Tech, Gregory and David were talking in low voices. "She's not ready," David warned. "If she finds out about Project Pandora now," Gregory interrupted him. "She's a Thompson. It's in her blood. Besides, we don't have a choice. With the Rothschilds involved, we need to act quickly." What neither of them knew was that, at that very moment in a dark office on the other side of the town, Alexander's father, Richard Rothschild, was examining documents similar to those his son had discovered. "So the Thompsons have finally found their lost heiress," he muttered to himself. "Interesting. Very interesting." As all the players moved to their next steps, the board became increasingly complicated. Family secrets, corporate intrigues, and broken hearts intertwined in a complex web of emotions and motivations. And at the center of it all, Mia and Alexander, two pawns in a game much bigger than they could imagine, prepared for an encounter that could change everything. The small cafe where it all began seemed strangely unchanged, an oasis of normality amid the chaos that Mia's life had become. She entered discreetly, wearing sunglasses and a scarf to hide her face from possible paparazzi. Alexander was already there, seated in a secluded corner. When their eyes met, both felt a wave of conflicting emotions: anger, hurt, longing, and surprisingly, relief. "Thank you for coming," Alexander said softly as Mia sat down. "You said you had something to show me." "About my mother," Mia replied, getting straight to the point. Alexander nodded, taking an envelope from his briefcase. "Before I show you this, you need to know, when I started all this, it was just a stupid bet. But Mia, what I feel for you is real, and what I've discovered changes everything." He opened the envelope, revealing an old photo. In it, two young women smiled at the camera, their arms intertwined like best friends. Mia immediately recognized one of them. That's my mother," she whispered, touching the photo with trembling fingers. "Yes," Alexander confirmed, "and the other woman is my mother." Mia looked at him, shocked. "What? How?" "They were best friends in college," Alexander explained. "But something happened, something that made our families become enemies." At that moment, Mia's cell phone vibrated. It was a message from Gregory. "Where are you? Come back immediately. It's not safe." Mia ignored the message, focusing again on Alexander. "Go on." "The necklace you mentioned in your diary," Alexander continued. "It's not just a piece of jewelry. It's a key to something called Project Pandora." Mia's eyes widened. She had heard Gregory and David mention that name. "What is Project Pandora?" she asked. "I'm not sure," Alexander admitted. "But whatever it is, it's at the center of all this. The dispute between our families, your father's disappearance, maybe even your mother's death." Mia felt as if the air had been sucked out of her lungs. "Are you suggesting that my mother's death wasn't an accident?" Before Alexander could answer, the cafe door burst open violently. David entered, accompanied by two intimidating-looking men. "Miss Thompson, we need to go." "Now," David said firmly. Alexander stood up, placing himself protectively in front of Mia. "She's not going anywhere with you." The tension in the air was palpable. The other cafe patrons watched the scene with a mixture of fear and curiosity. "This is none of your business, Rothschild," David growled. "Mia, your grandfather is worried. It's dangerous for you to be out here." Mia looked from David to Alexander, feeling pulled in two directions. I can make my own decisions," she finally said, her voice trembling slightly. At that moment, Alexander's phone rang. It was his father. "Alexander, where the hell are you? We need to talk. It's about Project Pandora." Alexander's face paled. How did his father know about this? David, noticing Alexander's hesitation, took the opportunity to approach Mia. "Think carefully, Miss Thompson. Who are you going to trust? A man who has lied to you from the beginning, or your own family?" Mia felt tears of frustration forming in her eyes. "I don't know who to trust anymore. Everyone seems to be hiding something from me." Suddenly, a shrill sound filled the air. The cafe's fire alarms went off, and sprinklers began to spray water from the ceiling. In the ensuing confusion, With customers rushing to the exit, Mia felt a hand grab her arm. It was Lucy, her best friend. "Mia, come with me, quick!" Lucy shouted over the noise. Without thinking twice, Mia followed Lucy out of the cafe through a side exit, leaving behind a stunned Alexander and a furious David. As they ran through the streets of New York, Mia finally asked, "Lucy, how did you find me?" Lucy stopped, turning to face Mia with a serious expression. "There's a lot you don't know, Mia. About me, about your family, about everything. But now, we need to get you to a safe place." "Safe? From whom?" Mia asked, her head spinning with all the revelations from everyone. Lucy answered enigmatically, "Rothschilds, Thompsons, nobody is who they say they are. And Project Pandora? It's just the tip of the iceberg." Meanwhile, in a car parked nearby, a shadowy figure watched the scene unfold. Picking up a phone, he dialed a number. "Sir," said the deep voice, "the situation has become complicated. The Thompson girl escaped, and it seems there's a new player on the board." On the other end of the line, a voice replied, "Keep them under surveillance. Project Pandora cannot fall into the wrong hands, no matter the cost." As night fell over New York, the various players in this complex drama moved like pieces on a giant chessboard. And Mia, at the center of it all, began to realize that her life would never be the same again. Lucy guided Mia through a series of alleys and back streets, skillfully avoiding security cameras and curious glances. Finally, they arrived at an old building in the Lower East Side. "Where are we?" Mia asked, breathless. "My real apartment," Lucy replied, typing a complex code into a hidden panel. "Welcome to my world, Mia." The interior of the apartment was a surprising mix of cutting-edge technology and vintage furniture. Computer screens covered an entire wall, displaying news feeds, security cameras, and incomprehensible codes. "Lucy, what is all this? Who are you, really?" Mia asked, feeling completely lost. Lucy sighed, sitting down in a swivel chair. "I'm an independent agent, Mia. I was hired years ago to protect and monitor you." "Hired by whom?" Mia demanded. "By your father," Lucy answered softly. Mia felt her legs weaken. "My father, but he's dead." "No, Mia. Your father is alive. And he's the reason why Project Pandora is so important." Meanwhile, at the Thompson mansion, Gregory was furious. "How did you lose her?" he shouted at David. "Sir, there was unexpected interference. It seems there are more players involved than we thought," David replied, trying to keep calm. Gregory threw himself into his chair, running his hand through his gray hair. "This complicates everything. If we don't bring her back soon, the whole plan could crumble." In the Rothschild office, a similar scene was unfolding. Alexander confronted his father, Richard. "Why did you never tell me about Project Pandora?" Alexander demanded. Richard Rothschild looked at his son with a mixture of pride and concern. "To protect you, son. The less you knew, the safer you'd be." "But now Mia is involved," Alexander argued. "We need to do something." Richard nodded slowly. "Perhaps it's time to unearth some old secrets. Call your mother. She has some stories to tell." Back at Lucy's apartment, Mia was trying to process all the new information. "So, all this time, you were watching me? Was our friendship a lie?" Mia asked, hurt. Lucy shook her head vehemently. "No, Mia. My mission was to protect you, but our friendship is real. That's why I'm risking everything to tell you the truth now." Lucy got up and went to a safe hidden behind a painting. From there, she took out a thick folder. "This is everything." "I know about Project Pandora," she said, handing the folder to Mia. "Your father was working on it when he disappeared. It's revolutionary technology, something that could change the balance of power in the world." Mia opened the folder with trembling hands. Complex diagrams, formulas, and codes filled the pages. In the middle of it all was a photo. In it, her father smiled next to a man she immediately recognized, Alexander's father. "They worked together?" Mia asked, shocked. Lucy nodded. "They were partners, best friends, just like their wives. But something went wrong. There was a betrayal, but I never knew exactly what happened." At that moment, Lucy's phone rang. She answered, her face paling as she listened. "Understood," she said before hanging up. Turning to Mia, she said urgently, "We have to get out of here. Now." "Why?" What's happening? Mia asked, alarmed. Your grandfather has mobilized a private security team to find you, and the Rothschilds, they're doing the same. We're in the middle of a war, Mia. As they prepared to leave, Mia asked one last question. Lucy, where is my father now? Lucy hesitated before answering. The last information I had is that he's hiding in a secret facility in Switzerland, but to get to him, we need the necklace. It's literally the key to all of this. Outside the building, 2 security teams were approaching from opposite directions, one led by David, representing the Thompsons, and another by a trusted man of the Rothschilds. In the city center, Alexander was making a decision. Ignoring his parents' protests, he got in his car and left, determined to find Mia and discover the truth, no matter the cost. And somewhere hidden from the world, Mia's father watched the events unfold through monitors. His expression was a mixture of concern and determination. It's time, he muttered to himself. Project Pandora needs to be completed for Mia for the future. As the night progressed, the various threads of this complex web began to intertwine, leading all involved to an inevitable confrontation. And at the center of it all, a seemingly insignificant necklace held secrets that could change the world. The full night in New York was far from peaceful. Sirens echoed in the distance as Mia and Lucy ran through dark streets, avoiding the main avenues. Where are we going? Mia asked, breathless. To the only place where we can be truly safe, Lucy replied. Your father's old laboratory. Meanwhile, the security teams of the Thompsons and the Rothschilds converged on the apartment that Mia and Lucy had just left. David, leading the Thompson group, was the first to enter. Damn, they're already gone, he muttered, observing the empty apartment. The leader of the Rothschild team, a man named Marcus, entered soon after. The 2 groups stared at each other with hostility. This is none of your business, Rothschild, David growled. Marcus smiled coldly. On the contrary, everything involving Project Pandora is our business. The tension in the air was palpable. Both sides ready for a confrontation. Meanwhile, Alexander was frantically driving through the city, his heart racing. He knew he needed to find Mia before either side did. His phone rang. It was his mother. Alex, darling, you need to know the truth, she said, her voice trembling. The necklace, it belonged to me and Mia's mother. It was a symbol of our friendship, but also the key to something much bigger. Mum, what exactly is Project Pandora? Alexander asked, desperate for answers. There was a pause before she answered. It's clean, unlimited energy technology, Alex. Something that could change the world, but in the wrong hands. The call dropped abruptly. Alexander cursed, pressing even harder on the accelerator. At the abandoned laboratory, Mia and Lucy finally arrived. The place was dusty and full of cobwebs, but still emanated an aura of scientific genius. Here, Lucy said, heading to a large safe on the back wall. The necklace, you brought it. Mia hesitated for a moment before pulling the necklace from inside. Her blouse. She had always kept it hidden, following her mother's instructions. How does this work? She asked, handing the necklace to Lucy. Lucy examined the pendant carefully. It's more than it appears. The intricate design is actually a highly sophisticated locking mechanism. As Lucy worked on the necklace, Mia explored the laboratory. Her eyes fell on a framed photo on the desk. In it, her father smiled next to Alexander's father, both holding a prototype of some device. Lucy, Mia called, her voice trembling. What went wrong between them? Lucy sighed deeply. Your father and Richard Rothschild disagreed on how Project Pandora should be used. Your father wanted to make it available to the world, for free. Richard, well, he saw the potential for profit. Before Mia could respond, the sound of footsteps echoed down the hallway. Someone was approaching. Quick, hide, Lucy whispered urgently. Mia barely had time to hide behind a large machine when the door burst open violently. To her surprise, it wasn't the security teams but Alexander. Mia, he called, looking around frantically. Are you here? Mia came out of her hiding place, her eyes meeting Alexander's. For a moment, the world seemed to stop. Alex, what are you doing here? She asked, her voice a mixture of relief and distrust. I needed to find you, he replied, taking a step towards her. I needed to tell you the truth, about everything. At that moment, Lucy managed to open the safe. A bluish glow emanated from inside, revealing a small device. "This is it," Lucy said in reverence, "the heart of Project Pandora." But before any of them could react, the wall exploded. Through the dust and debris, the figures of David and Marcus emerged, followed by their respective teams. "Hand over the device," David demanded. "No way," Marcus retorted. "This belongs to the Rothschilds." Alexander placed himself protectively in front of Mia. "It doesn't belong to anyone. It's bigger than all of us." The tension in the air was palpable. All the main players were now gathered, each with their own agendas and secrets. It was then that a new voice cut through the air, making everyone freeze. "Enough!" Mia felt her heart stop. She knew that voice even after so many years. From the shadow of the debris emerged a figure that everyone thought was dead or missing. Mia's father. "Daddy?" Mia whispered, tears in her eyes. The man smiled sadly. "Hello, sweetheart. I think it's time we finally reveal the whole truth about Project Pandora." The laboratory, once quiet, now buzzed with palpable tension. Mia's father, Dr. James Thompson, stepped forward, his tired eyes scanning the surprised faces around him. "I know you all have questions," he began, his voice calm but firm, "and it's time to answer them." Mia, still in shock, was the first to speak. "Dad, how? Why?" James smiled sadly at his daughter. "Mia, my disappearance was necessary to protect you and Project Pandora. But now I see that my absence has caused more harm than good." Alexander, still protectively beside Mia, asked, "What exactly is Project Pandora? Why is it so important?" James walked over to the glowing device that Lucy had retrieved from the safe. "This, my friends, is the key to unlimited clean energy. A device capable of extracting energy from the very vacuum of space, without pollution, without waste." Everyone's eyes widened at the revelation. "But why all this secrecy?" David questioned, his posture still defensive. James sighed. "Because in the wrong hands, this technology could be used as a weapon of mass destruction. Imagine a device capable of sucking all the energy from a city in seconds." Marcus, from the Rothschild team, stepped forward. "That's why it should stay with us. We can protect it." "No!" James exclaimed. "It was that mentality that caused all this confusion in the first place." He turned to Mia, his eyes full of emotion. "Daughter, the necklace your mother gave you isn't just a physical key. It's part of a biometric security system. Only you can fully activate Project Pandora." Mia looked at the necklace in her hands, finally understanding its true meaning. At that moment, Richard Rothschild's voice echoed through the laboratory. He had arrived, accompanied by Alexander's mother. "James, old friend," Richard said, his voice a mixture of emotions. "After all these years," James faced his former partner. "Richard, our differences almost destroyed everything we worked for. It's time we do the right thing." Alexander's mother, Elizabeth, approached Mia. "Darling, your mother and I, we were more than friends. We were the guardians of this secret. The necklace you have was originally ours." Mia, overwhelmed with all the revelations, looked at Alexander. Their eyes met, full of understanding and a love that had survived lies and betrayals. Suddenly, the sound of helicopters filled the air. Through the broken windows, everyone could see lights approaching. "It's the authorities," Lucy warned. "Someone." "I must have reported the explosion." James looked urgently at Mia. "Daughter, the decision is now yours. What do we do with Project Pandora?" Mia felt the weight of the world on her shoulders. She looked at the device, at her father, at Alexander, and at everyone else in the laboratory. Years of secrets, lies, and conflicts had led to this moment. With a deep breath, she made her decision. "Let's reveal everything," she said, her voice firm. "The world deserves to know. It deserves to have this chance for a better future." James smiled, proud. That was always the original intention. Clean, free energy for everyone. Richard Rothschild, surprisingly, nodded. Perhaps we were wrong in wanting to control this. Maybe it's time we do the right thing." The sirens were getting closer. Everyone in the laboratory looked at each other, years of rivalry and distrust beginning to dissipate in the face of the magnitude of the moment. Alexander took Mia's hand. "I'm with you, no matter what happens." Mia smiled at him, feeling, for the first time in days, a sense of peace and purpose. James addressed everyone. What comes next won't be easy. There will be questions, investigations, maybe even accusations. But if we stand united, we can finally realize the dream we had so many years ago. As the lights from the official vehicles illuminated the laboratory, Mia stepped forward, the necklace in one hand and the Pandora device in the other. "We're ready," she said, her voice echoing with determination. The doors opened, and a new era was about to begin. An era of truth, reconciliation, and perhaps a bright future for all of humanity. 6 months had passed since that fateful night in the laboratory. The world had changed drastically with the revelation of Project Pandora. The first weeks were chaotic. Government investigations, congressional hearings, heated debates in the media. But as the dust settled, the true magnitude of the discovery began to sink in. Mia Thompson, now a globally recognized public figure, was standing on a stage in New York preparing to make an important announcement. Beside her were her father, James, Alexander Rothschild, and representatives from the Thompson and Rothschild families. 6 months ago, Mia began, her voice firm and confident, our lives changed forever. What started as a foolish bet and a series of family secrets turned into something much bigger than any of us could have imagined. The crowd listened in absolute silence, millions more watching on television and the internet around the world. Today, she continued, I'm pleased to announce that the first Pandora power plant is officially operational. From today, New York will be powered by clean, safe, and most importantly, free energy. Thunderous applause echoed across the square. Mia smiled, remembering the long road they had traveled to get here. In the months following the revelation, the Thompson and Rothschild families had worked tirelessly to repair the damages of the past. Richard Rothschild, in a surprising act of redemption, had donated a large portion of his fortune to ensure that Project Pandora would be implemented globally at no cost. James Thompson, reintegrated into society and cleared of all charges, now led an international team of scientists working to improve and expand the technology. As for Alexander and Mia, their relationship had been tested to the limit. But through honesty, forgiveness, and a love that had grown beyond the initial facade, they emerged stronger. Now they jointly led the Pandora Foundation, ensuring that the technology was used ethically and for the benefit of all. This is just the beginning, Mia continued her speech. In the coming years, we intend to expand this technology to every city, every village, every home on the planet. We envision a world where energy is no longer a commodity, but a basic human right. Alexander joined her at the microphone. But we can't do this alone. We need each and every one of you to implement, to innovate, to ensure that this gift is used responsibly. James stepped forward. Project Pandora was born from a dream of a better world, a dream that was almost destroyed by greed and mistrust. But thanks to the courage and integrity of the next generation, he smiled at Mia and Alexander, that dream is finally becoming a reality. Mia concluded, so today we're not just celebrating the launch of a new technology, we're celebrating a new chapter in human history. A chapter of cooperation, sustainability, and hope. The applause was deafening. In the middle of the crowd, Lucy, now head of security for the Pandora Foundation, smiled proudly at her friend on stage. As the families gathered for a historic photo, Mia reflected on the incredible journey that had brought them here. From a simple waitress to a world leader, from a lonely orphan to part of an expanded and united family, from a piece in a game she didn't understand to the architect of her own destiny. Alexander hugged her, whispering in her ear, "Who would have thought a stupid bet would bring us here?" Mia laughed, touching the necklace on her neck, now a symbol not of secrets but of a bright future. Sometimes the greatest treasures are born from the most unexpected places. As they left the stage, Mia knew her journey was far from over. There would be challenges ahead, obstacles to overcome. But with truth as her compass and love as her driving force, she was ready to face anything. And now, dear viewer, the story of Mia and Project Pandora is a powerful reminder that each of us has the power to change the world. That secrets, when revealed with courage and integrity, can transform into solutions. That love, even born from the most unlikely circumstances, can be the most powerful force of all. So what will you do with this inspiration? How will you use your own key to unlock a better future? Mia's journey began with a simple bet, and look where she ended up. Imagine where your own journey might take you. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more exciting stories like this one. Until next time, and remember, every choice we make has the power to change the world. What will your next big decision be?